better just to work off of that and say, hey, this is where we're, if you want to take a look.
Yeah, signs on the stuff. Does it look?
Or you can actually.
Everyone, you know what you're supposed to
know
know.
sort of existing conditions, so maybe you can describe what
Did we?
is going to be done there. Right.
They're supposed to be in the final throes of their documents.
It really is like double.
And you said this moved
Another
40
130.
feet?
So yeah, we could start there and then. Yeah. Sure.
Locked by the easel. Should you leave a seat next to you? I don't want to.
Make sure you turn your mics on.
Scott. This one?
This stinks. Can I move down on this? I live on the first floor.
Come down the way.
Yeah. Just let me get my legs under this thing.
Up. Up. Up, toggle switch.
Oh, sorry. Oh, that's fine. I don't really need to, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, all right. Good evening, and welcome to the Planning Advisory Board meeting of Wednesday, June 17th, 2020. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Member DeLeonardo.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Byrne, would you call the roll of board members, please?
Chairman Stanko,
Present?
Member DiLeonardo,
present.
Member Chavina,
Here.
Member Warner,
Here.
Member Castaway,
Here.
Member Burns here, Chairman, you have a quorum.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to mention for the record that the board is conducting a virtual meeting, which is being live streamed on the Town of Oyster Bay website this evening. So whether we are here or in the board meeting room, or if you're watching virtually this evening, we'll get a chance to hear the applicant's presentation. As we usually do, the board will also get a chance to ask any questions regarding the application. I want to point out that the board will not be voting this evening. Rather, we will vote on the application next Wednesday, June 24th, 2020. That meeting will also be live streamed on the town's website. And the website is oysterbay-ny.gov. In addition, I want to mention any interested parties may submit questions, comments, documents, photographs to the board through Mr. Scott Byrne, the Executive Secretary of the Planning Advisory Board. Scott, do you want to just mention how people can contact you?
Certainly, Chairman. They can email me at sby
oysterbay-ny.gov. Again, that's SBYRNE@oysterbay-ny.gov, and my telephone number is 516-624-6249. And Chairman, I just want to make a correction. It's oysterbaytown.gov.
Oyster Bay Town? Okay, okay, thank you.
And you can watch the live stream.
oysterbaytown-ny.gov. Okay. If anyone wishes to address the board this evening, please state your name and address for the record. We have one agenda item this evening. 7940 Woodbury Partners LLC, 7940 Jericho Turnpike, Woodbury, New York, 11797. The applicant is seeking a site plan recommendation from the Planning Advisory Board in accordance with the town's site design standards. The applicant is proposing the demolition of a 56-foot by 167-foot two-story building and the construction of a 4,875 square foot one-story bank building with a drive-through and a 12,642 square foot one-story retail building with associated site improvements. The proposed use for the subject property is a permitted use pursuant to Chapter 246, Table 5.2 of the Code of the Town of Oyster Bay. Mr. Byrne, do you want to do any correspondence on that application?
Yes, Chairman, we do have correspondence. We have a memo from the Planning Division dated June 16th, 2020, stating that subject property located at 7940 Jericho Turnpike, Woodbury, New York, 11797, has a Nassau County Land and Tax Map ID number, Section 15, Lot D, Lot 534 through 536, which was formerly known as Section 15, Lot D, Lot 533, and the parcel is located within the neighborhood business zoning district. We have a memo from the Department of Environmental Resources dated April 21st, 2020, recommending the adoption of a negative declaration for the purposes of seeker. We have a memo from Code Compliance Division dated February 21st, 2019, stating that there are no open code cases for the subject property. Chairman, since this memo was dated, the Planning Division confirmed with the Code Compliance Division today that there are still no open code compliance cases on the property. We have a memo from the Zoning Board of Appeals dated March 22nd, 2019, stating that no appeals for a variance were brought before the Zoning Board of Appeals for the subject property. We have a memo from the Highway Department dated April 4th, 2019, stating the applicant must obtain permits for work in the town's right-of-way. We have correspondence from the New York State Department of Transportation dated September 6th, 2019, stating they have no objection to the town granting site plan approval. We have a resolution number 10376-20 dated June 4th, 2020, from the Nassau County Planning Commission recommending local determination for this project. We have a parking memo from the Division of Planning dated June 16th, 2020, stating the required parking for the subject site is 147 parking spaces and 184 parking spaces have been provided. We have correspondence from Catherine Graves residing at 78 Woodlake Drive West, Woodbury, New York, dated June 16th, 2020, and correspondence from Judith Campisi residing at 12 Jennings Court, Woodbury, New York, dated June 16th, 2020. The board and the applicant have both received copies of these two correspondence prior to tonight's meeting, and we have the affidavit of signposting and the affidavit of mailing from the applicant.
Thank you very much. With that,
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, everyone who is joining us via live stream. My name is Gregory Alvarez from Amato Law Group, 666 Old Country Road, Garden City, New York, here on behalf of the applicant, 7940 Woodbury Partners, LLC. As described, we are here this evening to discuss a redevelopment of property located at 7940 Jericho Turnpike, designated Section 15, Block D, lots 534 to 536. The proposal consists of two buildings that will be located on the northerly portion of the property, a bank and a retail building, which we'll talk about in a little bit more detail in a bit. The relief requested again is for site plan approval pursuant to 246-6221 of the town code, and we're also seeking a negative declaration pursuant to your TECRA process. Just for informational purposes, we will also be seeking an administrative docket approval from the town board in connection with a prior declaration of restrictive covenants attached to the property from 1999, which the lifting and/or modification of will facilitate this development. No variance relief is required, and therefore it is an as-of-right use that we're proposing this evening. Just to give you some background in terms of the site history, approximately, or actually a little bit over 4 years ago, this applicant appeared before this board seeking site plan approval for a similar application with some noted changes since then. In particular, there was a bank component, there was a retail component. The difference at that time, the major difference at that time, is that in the rear, here we are proposing the existing hotel building that's currently located on the property to remain. Back then, that area of the property was to also be redeveloped. Right now, there actually is a building up front. That building is proposed to be demolished and replaced with these two buildings. In the back, we're going to preserve the hotel building, but back in 2016, it was a 40,000 square foot office building, which was intended for medical office use. That approval was granted on March 17th, 2016. However, it was not constructed. And you may ask, why are we back here again 4 years later? Well, during the intervening time, the applicant made attempts to lease the medical office building, and through its efforts, it was realized and determined that it wasn't commercially feasible at that time. So instead of the office component, we've come back before you because in that intervening time, the original site plan approval had expired, so we had to reinitiate the process again, and that we did back in January of 19. Just to give you some quick comparisons between the 2016 and today's application as well, the bank and the retail component have changed just a little bit. Retail, not so much, because back then we were proposing a 12,571 square foot building. Today we're proposing a 12,560 square foot building, so slightly smaller, only a few square feet difference, but generally the same concept for the retail component. As for the bank, slightly different, actually more so different, because back in 2016 the proposal was for a 4,875 square foot bank with 4 drive-through lanes that were proposed as part of the bank. That's actually been modified and reduced to 2,943 square feet and only 1 drive-through lane. So that tells you a little bit of the difference that we're proposing here today. It's actually a smaller development, and in fact, the existing building is smaller than the office component as well. So in that intervening time, since January of 2019, we've been working with both the Department of Planning and Development and also the Department of Environmental Resources as part of the TECRA process. A lot of attention has been paid, a lot of back and forth, a lot of commenting and revisions to this site plan to address all the comments that came through from both planning and from environmental resources. As Mr. Byrne pointed out, the result of the TECRA process did produce a recommendation for a negative declaration under its memo from April 21st of this year. And then just to finally get us back here in June, on June 5th, earlier this month, the Nassau County Planning Commission did issue a local determination allowing this application to proceed tonight. So just to talk a little bit about the property itself, as you can see, it's sort of a rectangular, I guess, in general lot in that there is a shorter frontage along Jericho Turnpike, approximately 280 feet, and then along Pickett's Lane it extends much further, approximately 900 feet or so. So the property is split up, as we said, into 3 lots. The 3 lots are comprised of 534, which is the bank lot where the bank would be located. 535, which is where the retail would be located, and 536 is where the hotel would remain. Now, as part of this as well, just want to mention a couple more things about the property itself. I think we mentioned that it's a neighborhood business. Overall, it's approximately 4.5 acres. The area surrounding the property is a mix of commercial and residential. Along Jericho Turnpike, it certainly is a commercial corridor, especially just to the east here. So if you're looking at this map here, east is actually up. And over there, you have two, on each of the other corners to the east, you have commercial strip centers with various commercial development in there. In fact, in the commercial strip center to the northeast is an existing Chase, which this bank will actually replace. So that's the idea in terms of the bank. To the north is the town golf course, and to the west is the Woodbury Greens condominiums. And then to the south and to the southeast, there is more residential as well. There's condominiums to the east, and then to the south, there's single family. Okay, so in terms of the components, like I said, we have breakdown of the three components. Overall, the building coverage of the lot is only 13.3%, which is well below the 60%, which is permitted under town code. In fact, if you divide up each of the lots, and consider the coverage of each of the lots, you only rise to 25%, which is on the retail lot, and that's the highest total if you just broke it out lot by lot. As part of this approval as well, there are some significant architectural upgrades that are proposed, particularly with the new buildings. In both instances, they're meant to be a cohesive whole, create sort of a modern, sleek look for the front of this building that faces out onto Jericho Turnpike. A couple of other improvements that I'll point out, but we do have experts here who can say more about it. We're making improvements along the intersection as well, because we know some comments have arisen from the community about that. So first of all, curb cuts. So right now there are two curb cuts along Jericho Turnpike. There's one close to the corner of Pickett's and Jericho, and then there's a second one at the westerly end of the frontage. We're actually going to be closing one of those curb cuts, the one closest to the corner, leaving the one to the far west, and creating it so that it is clear that that is a right-in, right-out driveway to discourage people from trying to make that left. Also, along Pickett's Lane, we're making improvements there too. So the major improvements, which we have our traffic engineer who can talk a little bit more about it, but the two things I want to point out, we're moving the driveway further to the south to give more, to create it further away from the intersection. And also, we're going to be, as part of our discussions with the DOT, we're going to actually be extending Pickett's Lane's left turning lane by approximately double what it is today, from approximately 120 feet to approximately 255 feet. So that will accommodate a lot more cars there at that intersection. So there are other improvements as well. Parking, I just want to point out, parking and loading, we're compliant with that, just with all the other requirements that we need to meet. Parking, we need 148 spaces. We're proposing 184 spaces. And even if you take each component, like we did with the building coverage, we're compliant on each of the lots as well. Loading, we're also compliant there. We're providing 2 loading spaces behind the retail. They're right next to each other. That's why we can propose them at 12 by 40 under the code. And they're also going to be positioned here behind the building, and they're going to be screened with vegetation. Let's talk a little bit about vegetation. Mostly with our conversations with environmental resources, there was discussion, and this is one of the changes we made from 2016. So back then, because we were developing the back, and there was a thought that it would be better to create new vegetation where landscaping was going to be proposed. There was going to be a lot of new vegetation on the site. Now that's still the case. We're still providing new vegetation within the parking area, and where it's needed in the site itself. But we'd like to point out, though, that there is an existing substantial screening of and vegetation along the westerly boundary that runs the length of it, and all of that's going to remain at this point, and that was actually by request of the town. The purpose of that is to preserve the existing screening. The thought was that the screening would probably be better served by the existing vegetation as opposed to new vegetation that would be planted. So that's going to remain. A berm that also exists there will remain as well. Signage, 2 things. There will be wall signage which will permit and will comply with all town requirements. And also, there's an existing freestanding sign that's subject to a prior ZBA approval in 1997, 97-21. and so the intent there is to continue to use that structure to the benefit of future tenants who will seek their permits to locate their signs there. Okay, so now I just want to, just taking all of that together, I think we do and will and have complied with the site plan standards under your town's code, which is what we're responsible to satisfy before you tonight. As part of that, we've also conducted quite a bit of traffic study here. We've talked a little bit about what we've done, but Atlantic Traffic, one of our experts who's here today on their behalf, will talk a little bit more about it, but I just want to point out a couple of things. Most important because as part of the TEQR process, we had to go into quite a deep level of detail to ensure that we're addressing vehicular, bicycle, pedestrian traffic that's going to be in and around the site. So in terms of vehicular, I just want to point out one thing, a couple of things there. First off is that they have conducted their review and have confirmed, which was required, to show that there will not be a significant increase in traffic caused by this new development. Now, most useful, I think, as a comparison is the 2016 application, which we discussed before. So if you look at the traffic analyses for that site and for this site, and you look at the differences between the traffic that's intended to be generated or anticipated to be generated, it will be on the order of 20 to 55% lower during peak hours for this application versus the 2016, which was approved back then. So we would like to point that out as well. In terms of connectivity for pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure, that will also be preserved. There's also going to be, I understand, some pedestrian improvements at the light to allow for signals for pedestrians at the light. So, but we have experts who will talk a little bit more about that. All of this generated our conceptual approval from the DOT, which Mr. Byrne has pointed out. So, taken together, I do believe that with this very careful and the very extended comment period that we've had with the town departments, that we've been able to arrive at a design that does meet the site plan standards under your code. So we're talking about 246-610-1, which sets forth the general standards related to traffic circulation, entrances and exits, visibility, which in terms of visibility, the traffic study also includes a site distance determination to ensure that the site is sufficiently visible for vehicular motorists moving towards the site. So that's also been confirmed as well. Parking and loading, interconnections between the lots, as we've discussed already. There will be sufficient handicap facilities compliant with all ADA requirements, and we did talk about the landscaping as well. Similarly, under 246-610-2, these standards relate mostly to effects that a development will have on surrounding areas. All of those have been addressed and considered as part of this process as well. So we're talking about screening to the west, which we've talked about, and then also other considerations from an environmental perspective that may have impacts on surrounding properties. That was a very big focus as well as part of the TEQR process, with such things as the intended signage, the intended lighting, and the like that may affect other property owners. So we've ensured that those effects will not impact surrounding residences. So we also meet in a more specific way the other standards set forth in the code. 246-7, which talks about the site design standards related to this sort of issues I've already talked about, but in more detail. And those detailed considerations, again, have been part of the both the communications with both planning and development and with environmental resources. And then finally, under 246-10, the performance standards, those are, again, the effects on other properties, and again, we've made sure that we have complied with those requirements as well. That's all in our reports. The traffic report and the TEQR report confirms all of that as well. So with that, I just want to mention real quick the correspondence we've received from the two residents. I just want to make sure we are able to address those questions as well. I'll start with the correspondence from Ms. Campisi. I just want to make sure we hit those points to make sure we can answer those questions. So the first question regarding traffic, I just want to point out that with our traffic study, I think we've addressed a lot of these concerns to demonstrate in an objective way, in an objective fashion, that we will not generate a significant amount of traffic for a variety of reasons. Not only improvements I've talked about, but just in terms of the anticipated traffic here, and that it will be significantly less than what had been approved in 2016.
Can I just ask you one question on that?
Oh, sure.
Are you saying that because there is no medical building at the back?
It's not no, it's not just
Is
that.
that the bigger
Yeah.
part of the traffic or not?
Yeah, no, I understand that. I mean, that was certainly part of the, part of the difference. However, when you take all three of the components together and you integrate it into the Jericho Turnpike, system in terms of how many cars that are generated each day, that's how that conclusion is able to be reached. That just by virtue of the components that are brought together and the anticipated traffic that would be generated by each of those, that still demonstrates that we will be, that it will fit in with the surrounding roadway network.
Is
Yes.
the hotel going to use the same exit as everyone else?
That will, yes, there'll be full interconnection between all of the parking areas. So each of the uses will be able to access either of the two driveways, either over at Pickett's Lane or over at Jericho Turnpike. The intention is to create a cross-access situation between each of the uses so that no one gets stuck anywhere. And so the idea is to be able to use both driveways depending on which way people want to go.
And on Jericho Turnpike is right turn only?
Correct.
Okay.
All right, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead, address the
Okay, yeah,
comments.
no, I'm almost, I'll just finish up here. So, the next item had to do with whether or not retail is viable here. Certainly, that's not necessarily a concern of a zoning consideration. This is an as-of-right use. The applicant understands that for any use that would require any further relief, be it a special permit or the like, they would certainly have to come back for further board approval for that. I think the applicant understands more than anyone else that certainly there are vagaries in terms of the demand on particular types of uses in an area, but certainly they would not be pursuing this unless they think that it is. So I think that answers the question for that particular issue, particularly from a zoning perspective, since we're not asking for relief as to the use. It's something that's permitted in the area. Finally, Ms. Campisi asks about the bank. I think I addressed that too, because we're actually swapping out an existing bank as opposed to creating another bank in the area. So I hope that alleviates her concern regarding that. So now I'll turn to Ms. Drave's email, which relates more to traffic. And again, I'll probably have my traffic expert answer more about this, but I think this falls back to a lot of what I've already said in terms of the objective analysis that's been undertaken in the traffic study to show why we believe that the development will fully integrate with the existing roadway network. They've also conducted in question for particularly the Pickett's Lane situation. Like I said, we're going to be extending the left-hand lane, turning lane, which will accommodate more cars to be able to make that movement. And our traffic expert has also conducted a gap study, which they'll talk a little bit more about, but that also aids to prove that the driveway can function much better, particularly in its proposed condition where it would be moved further away from the corner. There's also questions here about bicyclist and pedestrian access. So the way, two things. So the pedestrian access currently will remain. I mentioned also the improvements at the intersection. And it is, in fact, there are no sidewalks that continue all the way on here. So the intention here was to continue the existing conditions and the existing flow of pedestrians at this time. And we don't want necessarily to encourage people to go down to a sidewalk to nowhere. So the intention here was to ensure that so that pedestrians can understand where the available sidewalk is, and so that was the intention there in terms of the design of where pedestrians will access. And again, since the primary point is at the intersection, that's where we focus the improvements in terms of the pedestrian the pedestrian points where you'll be able to use the signals to be able to cross more efficiently. The other thing I have here has to do with the bicycle access as well. So the bicycle access currently exists where there is an existing bicycle path that leads up Pickett's Lane, and then it gets to the intersection and continues on to the other side. We do want to continue that, and to invite people onto the site, we have incorporated bicycle rack availability for folks who do want to access the site. So that we want to account for that type of intended traffic as well in the area. So we've incorporated that into our design as well. But before I say any more, why don't I bring up first our civil engineer just to run through everything that some of the improvements. He could talk in more detail than I can here, but just to point out some of the highlights for you. And so I asked Dan Peperaro from the Laurel Group to step forward. He is a professional engineer licensed in the state of New York. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. Dan Peverero with the Laurel Group, civil engineer on the project. I think Mr. Alvarez did a pretty thorough job explaining most of the site, so I'll try not to be redundant here. As he said, the site had been approved in 2016. The major component that's different is obviously the southern portion of the property that was a 3-story medical office and now is the hotel to remain. One thing that I would like to mention on the Chase portion of the property that had been a bank, the major difference is that the previous bank had several drive-through lanes that exited into this main drive aisle throat on Pickett's. And we were able to rework that layout such that there's one drive-through lane now that exits into the front of the building. So that should increase the functionality of the driveway into Pickett's. Ooh, this is takes a little getting used to. The existing northerly building of the hotel complex is to be removed. It includes hotel rooms and a now defunct restaurant that was there but is currently vacant. The southerly hotel building contains a lobby and rooms that are to remain. There's a little bit of work to be done on the lobby, but otherwise it's pretty much the building itself is to remain as is. The southerly hotel building and there's a large section of woods south of it are all to remain. And due to the demolition of the northerly building of the hotel, there'll be a reduction of about 44 hotel rooms off the site, and that restaurant, which will be removed. The existing site has 3 curb cuts, as Mr. Alvarez said. There's 2 along Jericho Turnpike and 1 on Pickett's Lane. We're removing the existing curb cut that's closest to the intersection along Jericho Turnpike. The other 2 curb cuts are very close proximity to where they are currently. We're moving the other curb cut along Jericho about 10 feet away from the property line here, and we're moving the Pickett's Lane curb cut about 30 feet south. I know Mr. Alvarez had mentioned that, but there's one other item that moving that does, in addition to giving the additional queue space, it also aligns directly across the street with a curb cut that's for a shopping center over there. So that will help the traffic movements in that area. Right now, the curb cut is sort of between 2 curb cuts across the street, which can be a little confusing while you're navigating that. So this should make it a lot more clear who's going where with it all lined up. The proposed parking layout at the front of the site is actually pretty similar to what's there currently. The main exception is that the existing conditions provide virtually no landscaping between the property line and the parking, whereas the proposed plan provides for 6 feet of landscaping between the parking and the property line. Our office worked with the planning department in regards to the layout on the southern portion of the property, which currently is angled two-way dead-end parking. It's a very strange layout.
Point that out again on the map. What's the strange layout?
Existing, the existing layout adjacent to the Southerly Hotel building is angled parking that's two-way traffic and dead end. And it narrows down to about 14 feet. And this condition exists on both sides of the existing hotel building. It's a very strange layout that got approved eons ago, and I'm sure the town probably wouldn't approve it today. So we worked with planning to significantly upgrade that layout to something that is something that you would see, anywhere else. 90-degree parking, 24-foot drive aisles, standard parking stall size. And it's actually a little quirk of the existing design. In addition to providing the improved parking layout, there's also an increase in landscape area, on both sides. It's a little strange that they threaded the needle of having both a terrible layout and less landscaping. I don't know how they did it, but we're making both of those better. So frankly, I'm not sure. It's probably very difficult to navigate that parking currently, and it'll be much just standard parking under proposed conditions. Overall, the plan requires 147 parking stalls, provides 184 parking stalls. The bank drive-through allows for 5 queuing spaces, and the plan allows for 2 proposed loading spaces, both of which are in compliance with town code requirements. The plan requires 10% interior landscaping per town code and provides for about 19% interior landscaping, whereas the existing conditions only have 9% interior landscaping. Overall, the plans provide for slightly more overall landscaping as compared to existing conditions. The plans provide for town-compliant lighting, including the use of 14-foot tall LED lights equipped with house-side shields. We worked with the Department of Environmental Resources to enhance the landscape plans with the addition of flowering trees and native species, and also with additional varieties of species to allow for enhanced biodiversity and increase the aesthetic of the site. And as Mr. Alvarez mentioned, the site is bordered to the west by a up to 12-foot high berm that is pretty densely vegetated as is, so we worked with planning staff to determine that it's probably best just to leave that as is in existing conditions, because it is pretty densely grown in. The sidewalk, we're proposing a pedestrian interconnection with the sidewalk along Jericho Turnpike, which allows for pedestrians to safely enter the site. Right now, if a pedestrian were to try to enter the site, they'd actually have to walk in through one of the curb cuts. So this is a significant improvement over existing conditions. Additionally, we're providing a bike rack on the site to allow bicyclists, if they were to enter the site, to have a place to store their bikes. And the buildings are proposed to have, cool roofs, white veneer on the roof, so that it decreases the heat island effect. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on the site plan.
Yes. On the corner, the sidewalk currently now goes down Pickett's Lane for a little period of time and then it just stops. Are you going to improve it that it goes the rest of the way down Pickett's Lane? Because that also incorporates the bicycle route that stops on Syosset Woodbury Road. And now you're eliminating even a further attachment for anybody on a bicycle, which we're trying to enhance pedestrians and bicycle traffic in the community. And now that hasn't helped the pedestrian or the bicyclist, it has actually eliminated access or safe access between Jericho Turnpike and getting back onto Pickett's Lane.
So the existing sidewalk that there is on Pickett's Lane is to remain. The thought of providing sidewalk along the length of Pickett's Lane, right now, if you're walking on Jericho Turnpike, you can see the end of the sidewalk.
Right, so you're gonna keep that? Is
So
it-
you know that it ends there. If we were to extend the sidewalk the length of the property, you wouldn't know that, and you'd have somebody going down Pickett's Lane. That's how you would end up with somebody sort of stranded and without a sidewalk.
Well, they're being stranded without a sidewalk up at the corner now, so so you don't want to put a sidewalk in the rest of the way down, is that it?
So they'd be 1,000 feet south
Yeah,
without realizing that they didn't have anywhere to go,
all right.
is the thought.
You think they'd just keep walking? All right. All right. The other concern I had, because it won't incorporate into the bike route at all. Coming down 30 feet actually probably eliminates some of the bike lane that's there now. It transitions in. It's a narrow, faded-out white line that continues, picks it up, because it's so narrow at that point on Pickett's Lane that it's not even wide enough at that point to have the bike lane go all the way to Jericho Turnpike. That's the reason it's picked up later on, not right up at the corner.
Look at that.
So I'm just looking for trying to phase some end, and I thought perhaps the sidewalk could go to a point where it can be picked up again on the bike route, some kind of conformity at that point. Otherwise, it's just, there's no sense to have the sidewalk there at all.
Just so we understand, you're intending
Only one spot?
where would the sidewalk go then?
I thought you'd continue it further down a reasonable
guess that's all
period
they
where it
need.
would
We can
incorporate or
ask.
flow into the bike lane that's there. You get off your bicycle and run off the sidewalk and get on your bike again and keep going. Being that you're moving it further down. I can't see on any of the maps or the surveys where the current bike route ends, but it's very faded line, and it narrows down to just the curb.
Yeah,
As you get up closer to Jericho, it just disappears, so.
So we could probably, just to prevent having to wipe this down again, maybe table that, and then Ethan can talk about that a little more from a
I thought
traffic
maybe we can
perspective.
incorporate something now, just trying to enhance the concept of flowing people and bicycles better while we have the chance at this point to, you don't have to go 500 feet all the way down to have a sidewalk. I don't think anybody's gonna walk it, but certainly,
Yeah, no, we understand. We have Ethan Chapowski from Atlantic Traffic who can talk a little bit more about how that all interconnectivity works and what the intention here was for the design. So if you could come forward and we'll swap out.
I got a question first.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
The turning lanes would be 250 feet now extended?
Again, Ethan would probably be best to talk about the right-of-way work.
There's only 2 handicap spots for the bank?
Yes, there's 2 for the bank. There's also another 2 across the drive aisle that are sort of for the retail that you'd be able to use, but that's the number that's required for the number of stalls on the bank parcel.
Okay. We're not encouraging people to go across the drive aisle. Don't get us wrong, but just a question about, is it enough for the bank?
Yes.
Okay.
Relative to the curb cut on Pickett's Lane, I know it's a right or a left. It's only one lane out and one lane in. You don't have a lot of backup space, for cars stacking behind. Could it possibly be that you could widen the right turn, left turn lane to accommodate, so that the right turn can go through, without having to stop? Because if you've got some, Picket Lane at certain times of the day is impossible. And for somebody to be sitting there, you could have 10 cars behind that want to make a right-hand turn. And, they're stuck. And, you also have, people that are in the neighborhood and know the site. They know what Picket Lane and Jericho Turnpike Light is like. I mean, they could very easily zip into your property, 2 turns, a left and a right and a left, and they're back out here. And now they're adding to your flow on the site. And I mean, I just think I don't think it's good planning to have everything backing up, because you have people wanting to come out of the motel, and customers wanting to make they have to make a left turn to get to the curb cut.
what are
Yeah,
the,
I think we could also have Mr. Chapowski address that. That was part of his analysis as well.
Okay.
He can talk to that as well.
I think it was alleviated because your plans last time were aware of the problems on Pickett's Lane You made it a right turn only exit.
Oh, just hold it a second, he's gonna... You come up, whenever you have to come up. Don't wait for us.
Well, let's make sure there are no more questions for Mr. But he'll be available.
I have one more question. The plan, I mean, I had to search for the signage plan, you know, for the identification of the signs. And, I mean, I see a stop bar, now I'm talking about the Jericho Turnpike curb cut. I see a stop bar, and you have a stop sign there. Since it's a right turn only, wouldn't it be wise to have a sign there, some sort of signage that says right turn only?
The DOT is almost certainly going to make us put in a no left sign.
Well, you know, whatever the verbiage
Sure.
is, I mean, but
Yep.
it's not identified
Sure.
on your plan.
I think it's identified on the street.
Pardon me?
I think it's identified on the street. It looks like it's written on the street.
Yeah, there is a,
Yeah, I mean.
there are hours, but we will add a sign.
You know, people don't look
Sure.
at the paving.
Yep, we will add a sign
I
to
mean, I think
restrict
there
that.
should be a sign there, and I think there should also be a sign, well, no, you're going both ways over there, so it doesn't make any difference. Okay, all right.
Sure.
But what about his suggestion about widening that?
Yeah, well, I mean, but I think the other gentleman,
You
the
want us
next
to talk about
next
that?
speaker.
All right, okay.
Yeah, we can talk about the show.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can talk about the behavior of how that drive.
Thank you.
Ansel.
Hi, I'm Ethan Chikoski. I'm at 2929 Expressway Drive North, Hauppauge, with the Atlantic Traffic. Yeah, I have a professional engineering license in the state of New York and 2 other states. We performed a traffic impact analysis for the development dated March 30th, 2020. Our report looked at a variety of, Our report looked at the development and the reduction of the hotel space and the proposed access as presented by the Laura Group here. So in the existing condition, you know, as described, we're on the southwest quadrant of Jericho Turnpike and Route 25 and Pickett's Lane. You know, the access is currently 2 full movement driveways on Jericho Turnpike, one close to the proposed driveway and one a lot closer to the intersection. And as well as the existing access on Pickett's Lane, which is approximately 40 feet north of the proposed access. So, but there's a couple of things that we're doing here to improve the traffic flow. One of those is shifting the Pickett's Lane access aligned with a commercial driveway and allowing for a safer condition in that realignment. We're also extending the northbound left turn lane for the approach to the signal, and that gives a lot of capacity. And with that widening, we're also doing it, you know, it helps your capacity with your flow. We're maintaining the existing bike facilities there. Currently, there's about 2-foot there's 2-foot shoulder on this, along the site frontage, and then approximately at where our driveway is, it opens up to the full bicycle lane. And we're maintaining that access as is. We looked at the traffic with the reduction of the hotel space and the addition of the retail and the bank, and we found, you know, there'll be, during the Saturday peak hours from our traffic observation, there'll be approximately 61 new vehicles entering the site and 53 exiting. We ran build and no-build analyses for the facility to evaluate the queuing out of the site and determine whether we'd have an effect, you know, on the signalized intersection. We found, you know, with the proposed improvements, it really helps flow at the intersection, and we found that the driveways, I think the one board member asked about the queuing out of the driveway. We found that, each of the driveways in the proposed condition would operate at a level of service D or better, which equates to about 2 vehicles in a queue. Additionally, we went out to the site to perform a gap study to determine if those vehicles exiting the site would have adequate, distance to exit. We found a total of 226 in the PM, weekday PM time frame, and 367 in the Saturday midday peak time would have the ability to egress out of that driveway. So based on our analysis and the projected increase of traffic, we think there's more than adequate room for egress from the driveways.
So the question becomes more about,
Oh.
Mr. If you could just, the board member's question regarding the concern that the driveway at Pickett's Lane was not sufficiently wide enough because there was concern that the queue would back up too far. Does your analysis suggest anything about whether or not that's necessary, or is the anticipated queuing sufficient? Anticipated queuing, would that allow for sufficient movement of those cars?
Yeah, as I just, I think I touched on it lightly, but the proposed driveway, based on our analysis, would have a maximum queue of 2 vehicles exiting. So, that could be more than accommodated with the site design. And then based on our vehicle gap analysis, we found that they could egress as well during the peak hours.
So if you could just describe a little bit about the gap analysis, what you were looking at to see
Sure.
How the cars would physically be able to egress from the property?
Sure. Existing traffic flows were videotaped along Pickett's Lane at the proposed driveway location during a typical weekday PM peak period, 4:45 to 5:45 p.m., and a typical Saturday period, 1:45 to 2:45 p.m. We reviewed two-way gaps in traffic to accommodate the left turn egress. Gaps of 7.1 seconds in duration and greater were tallied with 3.5 second interval follow-up gaps for weekday evening and Saturday peak periods. The gap and follow-up durations were determined using the highway capacity manual, which is, the resource that you would evaluate these with, and that's published by the Transportation Research Board. The results of the gap study found that based on the observations, you could accommodate the egress movements from the site, including in the proposed condition, which would be 53 vehicles during the weekday evening and 46 during the Saturday midday.
And would those numbers be sufficient to accommodate the anticipated traffic at this location?
Correct.
So what is the impact as well of having the additional turning left lanes to accommodate more traffic as it moves northbound?
For the Pickett's Lane approach. So for the Pickett's Lane approach, having an additional 120 feet, approximately 120 feet of capacity for your left turn movement, it allows more vehicles to store in that lane, and thus, allows through movements to egress through the intersection more efficiently, and increases your efficiency of the intersection. And with the relocation of the driveway, which is further away from the signal, based on safer traffic engineering principles, and the realignment with the commercial driveway, I think overall it's a much safer condition for this approach.
Okay. And now let's just touch on a little bit about the questions about pedestrian and bicycle access to the site. If you could talk a little bit about how pedestrians would access the site from Jericho Turnpike, and then also how in terms of bicycle movements, how it generally behaves currently in light of the existing conditions.
Yeah, as described, I think briefly before, we're maintaining what the existing infrastructure is for the bike lanes on Pickett's. South of the site, there's bike lanes, and as a bicyclist would enter into the intersection and continue north, they would have to enter in the through lane of traffic and basically follow the same rules of the road as any other vehicle. They'd have to stop at the red light, the vehicles would need to yield to them, and then they would continue through the intersection, in which case you have a bicycle lane on the other side. Now, as mentioned, on southbound, you have a two-lane two-foot shoulder, and, we're continuing those existing existing and, as mentioned, vehicles would need to yield to the bicyclists going southbound. And as far as the pedestrian connectivity, I think we discussed it a little bit with Dan, but, we're including sidewalk and enhancing the pedestrian connectivity on Jericho Turnpike, which also includes signal equipment upgrades at the intersection, as we've discussed with New York State DOT. And as we develop our highway work permit plans with them to a final degree, we're going to coordinate with them to make the most efficient, plans and safest pedestrian connectivity possible here. We're not continuing the sidewalk along Pickett's because, as noted previously, we don't want to encourage pedestrian traffics where there's not a safe facility for them to operate on. If you continue further down Pickett's and then you have pedestrians from the roadway, we don't want to encourage that. So, the conclusion of our traffic impact analysis found that, there wouldn't be a significant adverse effect to traffic in the roadway, especially with the off-site improvements and roadway improvements to the signalized intersection, the extension of the northbound turn lane, the relocation of the access points further from the intersection, and also the elimination of one of the access points on Jericho Turnpike, which would reduce overall conflict points. So, in my professional opinion, proposed project would not have a significant adverse effect on traffic. Excuse me, can't breathe in.
How do you get your analysis on a strip mall that you don't know what stores are gonna be in there?
So, that's a good question, sorry. So,
Hypothetically speaking, say a Starbucks goes in there or Dunkin' Donuts, you could
So,
technically.
our trip generation rates are based on the Institute of Transportation Engineers. They collect data throughout the country on a variety of land uses and come up with formulas and algorithms to predict the amount of traffic from those developments. In this case, we developed traffic generation rates for the square footage of retail and the square footage of the Chase Bank. And we also reduced the number of trips for the number of hotel rooms that are being removed. We came to those conclusions based on.
Busy store that goes there.
I'm sorry?
Trying to get out on Pickett's. If it's a busier store and you have that one lane, it's gonna be backed up.
Yeah, well, our data is based on hundreds and thousands of studies throughout the country, for shopping centers, and it's nationally recognized and the New York State DOT recognized method for trip generation.
And the turning lane's
So.
250 feet now?
250,
And,
255 to be exact.
Curb cut's at 178.
The curb cut is,
Should be technically past the turning lane?
no, no.
It's, I guess
It's, I'm not sure the exact location, but it's
the turning lane.
probably about 300 feet, I think, maybe.
Turning lane ends well before here.
Yeah.
So you can't turn right into the turning lane then? You have to get on the
No,
road then?
no, you have to get on the road and enter into the turn lane. With the concept that we've discussed with the DOT. I'm sorry?
What time of day were your gap analysis taken?
Our gap analysis was taken a weekday, 4:45 to 5:45 p.m. And that was based on our traffic data collection, which found that to be the peak hour at this time.
When was that
Location.
taken?
That was taken Thursday, June 20th, 2019.
Who has jurisdiction over Pickett's Lane? Is it a county road or
That's Pickett's Lane is a town road.
town road?
Yes.
No, but the DOT has been part of this discussion.
Yes,
so
it-
they're signaling.
Yeah, this is a Department of Transportation signal, and I believe there's a red light enforcement camera on this approach as well.
Is they what?
There's a red light enforcement camera on the northbound approach.
Question I had, in 2016, when we had a similar amount of, much less square footage in this particular area, it was more down because it went down to the east. The traffic was that it was a right turn only made sense at that point, regardless of the gaps and so forth. I know you've moved the road a little bit, but the reality of that road is, seeing it not just that one particular time, it's a problem road. It's a problem backup. You can hold maybe a few more cars. It creates an issue if you're trying to make the left and you can't make the left, you're going to hold up traffic going east on Pickett's Lane. So it made sense at that time. You had the right turn only, leaving at that point. I know you did have another exit down further to the east, which you probably could still use, because the way I'm looking at it here is the section that you're now developing up here, we're probably looking at about 35,000 square feet, give or take a little bit, as compared to what would have been in the same section, about 15,000 square feet. So inevitably, you're dealing with more cars that are going to be hitting these exits all around here than there were before in the previous 2016 report. So that's my concern. I don't see less cars going in and out. Hopefully, you get more cars in for business or your tenants. But right now, I don't see any great change.
Yeah, actually, it actually would be less.
Oh.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, actually, it's less square feet. So if you remember the three components with retail, bank, and the rear building. In 2016, we had a retail component that was very similar to what we're proposing today. The bank was double or so, not quite double the size proposed at that time. So we're actually reducing it by half. And then the rear.
But I'm seeing here, it showed 2,900 square feet. Current bank now is at 4,875.
That's right, yeah.
So it was smaller.
No, it's reversed. So it was larger back then, wasn't it?
No.
Oh, I got it reversed, I'm sorry. Yes, so the bank is slightly larger, but it's reduced by the driveway, queue, so there's only one instead of I don't know.
But overall, we're dealing with more square footage trying to come in and out of these exits now than we did previously, and had better exit before.
Well, again, based on the rates that we found from the Institute of Transportation Engineers, for the amount of square footage for this size shopping center, we found, I believe it was 20 to 55% less trips. I mean, so, we had a total of, the largest increase during a peak hour was 61 entering and 53 exiting new trips from the shopping center. I mean, that's taking into account the reduction of the hotel trips, the amount of pass-by trips, which is vehicles already on the roadway who are entering into the facility to use the retail and then exiting and continuing on their way. So, based on our analysis for this development, we find that the driveways will operate at a level of service D, which is based on highway capacity manual methodologies that find that, on a graded scale, vehicles can exit, based on a total queue of two vehicles, for these driveways.
I also think it's important to note that compared to the previously approved plan, what's now proposed on the southerly portion of the property operates very differently. So previously we had a medical office where you'd anticipate a lot of action during peak hours. The office staff coming and going right at rush hour, because that's what creates rush hour, is people coming and going from work. People having doctor's appointments during peak hours is when most people go. That's not the case for a hotel. So the operating hours in terms of when you'd expect it to be operating at peak capacity are different than what was previously. So you'd expect that exit onto Pickett's to get more traffic at once at rush hour under the previously proposed plan, compared to this where the southerly half is coming and going, sort of as people come and use hotel rooms.
Right, and the office use was also, that was the portion that generated the increase in square footage as opposed to what we have today. So that was on the order of double the size of what the hotel building is, if I'm correct. So that's the difference.
Scott?
Excuse me, do you have any idea on the proposed retail, who is going in there?
We do not at this time. Certainly the conditions right now have halted a lot of those discussions. subject to further approvals, whether it be special permit, or other board approval that would be required as part of this type of use if we consider it at that point.
It's not gonna be a McDonald's or a Burger
There are
King where you have,
7-Eleven, Starbucks.
Yeah, those are probably a marketplace development, but the point is noted that, you know, it would be subject to further review if that is something that would be considered for this.
Mr. Byrne, since Pickett's Lane is a town road, did we get anything from our highway department, traffic engineering?
We did.
We did not?
We did, and the comments were addressed, and the highway department noted that any work in the right of way is a problem.
And they approved the curb cut on Pickett's Lane as it's shown on this plan?
They did.
Thank you.
Lou, are you okay with that?
I'm really not. I mean, I'm,
Is it
you know,
possible to make that a wider?
you know, I just, you know, I mean, if you have 3 cars there that want to make a left-hand turn, then you have no access to a right-hand turn, people making a right-hand turn. I mean, I just don't, I don't understand why there would be any argument as to,
Yep.
I'm so sorry,
I-
Go ahead,
Yeah,
please.
I'm sorry. I mean, I think one thing, you know, to note, you know, I've said it a few times, we think there'll only be a queue of 2 vehicles, but, you know, in addition, you know, when you add a second, you may be concerned about vehicles in the right turn lane blocking your sight distance for vehicles looking right and turning left. You know, as far as whether you have enough space, you know, it looks like you have 30 feet of width. Your typical lane is 10 to 12 feet. So we would have to look at the turning movements there and see, you know, what makes sense geometrically.
Yeah, I mean, it may be possible to add a few feet there to allow that movement, because it sounds like we're pretty close to be able to allow that right turn movement for, you know, cars that don't want to wait. So we can definitely look at that to see if we can fit.
Even if you lose a parking spot there, you still have plenty of parking.
Yeah, yeah, so, yeah, we could definitely look to see if we have enough room there to accommodate and
Yeah,
address
I mean-
the requirement.
Anything else? What about refuse pickup? Do you have a service or a common space, or how are you planning that?
Dan might be able to answer that question.
So the trash enclosures for the retail space are located at the back of the building. They'll be shared by the tenants, usually picked up in non-peak hours, you know, just like anywhere else. The bank, because banks store sensitive materials, they don't really throw their trash out in a dumpster. So that'll all be taken care of internally and picked up from their carter from the inside of the building.
And sometimes we ask, are you planning a generator for the property or the bank, for the businesses at some point? No.
It's
Yeah, I mean, that would be subject to the tenant's request, but it's not planned at this point.
Okay.
You made reference to the marquee sign that's existing. You're gonna maintain that. Will that sign have all of the tenants listed?
That's the intention at this point.
Or is it just gonna be a marquee for Woodbury, whatever you call this?
Right, yes, Woodbury Commons, yes.
Woodbury Commons.
So, Woodbury Crossing, sorry. So, yeah, it's intended to accommodate the tenants, correct.
Is there any, the pool, it shows a pool on the site plan, a swimming pool?
Yes,
Is
that's
that-
the existing pool.
Is that gonna be away, rehabbed, or anything?
I don't know if there's any intention at this point, that's not part of this application, but it's intended to remain as an amenity to the hotel guests.
It is intended to, you said.
Well, yes, it will remain, it will remain.
Okay.
Okay. Everybody on the board? Good? Thank you. Any final thoughts? Gave us a lot of thoughts.
Sure. So, yeah, I just want to make sure that, to reemphasize the work that we've put in since January of last year to attempt to address all the comments that's come through all of the departments through the town with the DOT to try to make this as you know, as good a redevelopment of a property that is in need of it to the fullest extent that we can. We will bring great enhancements to this site. It will return it to full productive use, but at the same time, as we've demonstrated with our submissions and with our testimony tonight, we believe that the anticipated traffic can be easily accommodated at this site. It will not impact the existing conditions in terms of how it operates currently. We want to continue with the ability to have that connectivity from all sorts of modes of transportation. And we're trying to improve that also at the intersection with both the pedestrian improvements, with the extension of the left-hand turning lane, and with the curb cut adjustments so that so that it can operate in a fashion that will be an asset to the community. So with that, again, we believe we've met the site plan standards under the code, and we believe that you know, again, if there are any other questions that do arise, we'll be available for that during this week. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
Scott, I'm very glad that you received those 2 emails. So
Indeed.
you could address them this evening. I think that's very good.
Yes, that was
Scott,
helpful.
thank
That was helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Scott? No. All right, at this time, I'll entertain a motion on this application.
Make a motion to.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that this public meeting be closed, the record be left open until 4 p.m. on Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020, and decision be reserved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Mark Foley,
Voting on the motion, Chairman Stanko.
aye.
Member DiLeonardo.
Aye.
Member Chabina.
Aye.
Member Warner.
Aye.
Member Castellane.
Aye.
Member Byrne. Aye. Motion
It's
passes.
carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Have a good
Chairman.
evening.
Thank you. Entertain a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
So moved.
Stay well.
No problem. Yeah. I hope so. I don't want to talk with the mic.